Hello everyone, I'm Wendell Jones and welcome to this edition of the program Jones and Company. On this program we examine the national issues of the Bahamas. There are many issues to cover, but most people in the Bahamas today are talking about value-added tax, VAT. It's going to be introduced effectively on the 1st of January 2015, in a matter of days. And so on our program today we are going to talk about VAT and the economy of the Bahamas. And our guest on the program today is the Minister of State for Finance, the Honorable Michael Halkitis. He's been on our program before and he has been working very hard on the introduction of VAT and getting the economy of the Bahamas to fire on all cylinders. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
And I hope the economy is beginning to fire.
We believe we are seeing some signs of growth. We're seeing a reduction in the level of unemployment. We have forecast for this year a growth rate of 1.7%, 2.1% next year. And so while not as robust as we would like, it is moving in a positive direction, and we hope that particularly when we look at investment projects in the pipeline and coming out of the pipeline, we will have some surprises on the positive side and see even better growth. So we believe that we are beginning to turn the corner and better days are coming.
Very good. With the introduction of VAT, some people expect inflation. Some expect a dampening on the economy of the Bahamas. What is your expectation?
Our models show that there should be at a VAT of 7.5%, along with the customs duty reductions that will come into effect on January 1st. And I should say at this time that about 100 customs duties on about 100 items will be reduced on January 1st as VAT comes in. And so our studies show that the combination of VAT at 7.5%, the reduction in the customs duties, should have a price impact in the region of 3 to 5%. And so we have built that into our expectation. And so we expect, in the run-up to the introduction, there has been some uncertainty, even some fear about what prices will do. But that is our expectation, and we look forward to the implementation. Adjustments will be made by business, but we think that when businesses have taken into account the reduction in the customs duties, the fact that we are changing the way that customs duties is calculated on imports, i.e. We are not calculating customs duties anymore on freight and insurance, and when all those things are factored in, we don't expect to see a price increase on the range of 7.5%, of the magnitude of 7.5%, but anywhere between 3 and 5%. And so, again, the model shows, the research shows that there would be a slight dampening on the growth of the economy, and we factor that into our estimates. But we have to look at it, and I constantly, when we speak about the VAT and the introduction of the VAT, is to put it in the broader context. And the broader context is the Bahamas, as with all nations of the world, coming out of the recession that began in 2008. The effects on us were lower revenues, which led to increased deficits of a bigger magnitude that we had experienced in the past, low growth rates, in some years negative economic growth. As a consequence of that, our debt rose, so we have a larger national debt. Unemployment rose, and so when we get to 2012, looking 4 years into this recession, we see our debt had risen to a certain level. Our revenue was not as robust to support the government activities. Unemployment was up, and so we had to take what we thought is a holistic approach to getting the government's finances in order.
Tell me, Minister, you mentioned just now that there's an elimination in custom duties on insurance as well as freight?
On imports.
On imports, right.
Yes.
So if that is so, that will automatically, you would lose revenue from freight
Yes.
and insurance and import.
Yes.
The value-added tax, would that then compensate for the loss that you have there?
It would partially compensate, but what our objective was to, as much as we can, minimize the impact of the VAT. You recall originally the proposal was to bring in VAT at 15% and have across-the-board customs duty reductions. We went back, we had some feedback with the private sector. We went back and we got some additional advice, some advice from the private sector, and we came back and we said, okay, what we will do is we will come in at 7.5%, but we will not do the across-the-board customs duty reduction January 1st. What we will do is we will do selective customs duty reductions, and we've reduced duty on food items where duty was still applicable on those, construction materials, household appliances, apparel. Those are the main clothing. Those are the main categories. And so what we were seeking to do was to try and minimize the effect. And so we knew VAT was coming in at 7.5. We were reducing some customs duties. And so we said, if we change the way that duties are calculated on imports, i.e. you no longer add the insurance and the freight, that would lead to, and our estimates showed, an additional 2 to 2.5% reduction in cost to bring goods in. And so to bring goods in, the cost would be lower, so that when you add the VAT, the net effect should not be a total of 7.5%, but somewhere, as we said, in the region of 3 to 5%. And so, yes, you are correct, we would give up some revenue, but it was an effort. We were prepared to say, okay, we'll give up some of this revenue, because what we really want to do is, as much as possible, lessen the price impact.
Yeah.
So it's a trade-off.
Okay, what would be the average reduction in duty on food, for instance?
Because the duties were low, across the board, duties went down from, let's say, 5% on some items up to 15% on others.
So you were reducing by 15
on some items, for example, on clothing.
Okay.
By 5 on others, 10. And so for some items, the customs duty reduction would be more than the VAT. So for example, for clothing, the reduction in the customs duty would be more than the VAT. And so theoretically, we should expect to see some reduction in prices.
Right.
Now, businesses will tell you that they have additional costs in terms of administration, et cetera, so we might not see that. But we believe that when the dust has settled, so to speak, and we're well into implementation and businesses have this, they're used to dealing with VAT and they have more experience dealing with it, we should very well see the price of some goods actually come down, because the reduction in the customs duty rate is more than the imposition of the VAT.
There are some consumers who are really now complaining about the cost of food.
Yes.
That they say went up appreciably over the last several months. And are you suggesting then, come January 1st, that consumers should see a reduction in the cost of food?
It's possible. It's possible. Again, there's a lot of factors that go into this. We are reducing duties on a lot of food now is duty-free. In January, we will be reducing duties on some of the food items that still attract duty. The combination of that, when that comes down, and as I said, the calculation of duties when we take it off of freight and insurance, it could very well be that the net result should be a decrease in some of the items. Again, as I said, businesses might say to us that, okay, we can't have a reduction because I have other costs, administration, et cetera. But our aim is to try and lessen the price impact as much as possible. And like I said, I think as we move into the period of implementation, and as competition takes effect, and we see, some people, some businesses who realize that, okay, my costs have actually gone down, we should expect, hopefully, to see some reductions, yes.
At the border, if the individual goes to, say, Florida and shops for food items, they would be charged the regular duty,
Yes.
including the reduction that you now have in
Yes,
place.
they're charged a reduction plus the VAT at the border.
Plus the VAT.
At the border, yes.
Okay. So they can expect to pay 7.5% above the duty
Right.
that you have on the books.
Exactly.
Okay. That goes for food, clothing,
All goods that are imported into the country.
all goods.
All goods.
Even when you have duty free
Yes.
on certain items, you still pay VAT at the border.
You do, yes.
Why?
We decided that if we brought it in at 7.5%, it is simpler in terms of administration to not have any goods to be exempt.
Okay. So in effect, then everything coming into the country
Yes,
will have 7.5% added to whatever the value is,
that is correct.
whether it's duty free or not.
Yes.
Okay. And we hope that we see a leveling off of prices.
Yeah, we think so.
And the question that I have for you now is in terms of policing this, enforcement of this.
Yes.
That is a major concern.
Yeah, it is a major concern. And you know, Mr. Jones, if I were to just step back again now, when we speak about even the costs, when we reduce or when we change the calculation, all right, we expect to see a reduction in cost for goods coming in and to get on the shelf.
Okay.
In terms of enforcement, it has been a major problem, and it came to light, and I mentioned it when I gave the communication in the House this past week, that this whole VAT registration process has brought into sharp focus some of the deficiencies we had in terms of business license compliance. People who have come forth, part of the reason that we have a few more businesses pending the finalization of their registration for VAT is because we have to make sure that they are compliant with business license, either up to date in their payments or have in place a payment arrangement. And so historically, compliance in the country has been an issue. What we are doing is we invested heavily into an IT system for the administration of VAT, and we will be migrating the business license administration onto that system as well. And we recognize that compliance is going to be a big issue. We have in place within the VAT unit compliance division. We have conducted the vast majority of the registration online. We expect to have a lot of the filing done online, a lot of the payments done online. And so a heavy concentration for us would be to ensure that businesses are compliant in terms of their returns. There'll be provisions for audits, et cetera. So we're going to take this opportunity to promote a new culture of compliance. And at the same time, we're going to take this opportunity of the VAT implementation to look at some of the taxes in the country. You know, we've had complaints from businesses about the business license, it being calculated on gross turnover, and then so it represents a significant amount in some cases of the net income. And so we'll be examining that in the months ahead. We'll be looking at other taxes in terms of real estate taxes, in terms of we'll be actively looking at reducing other customs duties as we move from January into the budget period, which takes us into around May, June, so that when we get to July, we expect to unveil another tranche of another set of customs duty reductions. And we're basically taking this time to look at our entire tax regime to see how we can make it simpler to administer, to make it fairer, and to make it more friendly to, more promoting of economic growth.
Wouldn't you say that in terms of people registering, that you would have seen a bump up in your revenue?
Yes, we have, and that has been the experience of our advisors tell us. That has been the experience around the world. And when you see, when they implemented VAT, our advisors who have had experience in the region, they tell us that you see better revenue compliance across the board. And that has been experienced. And you know, we, in the registration process, it's been quite interesting because at the very beginning, we were very concerned that we would have a rush at the beginning.
Yes.
And so we conducted tests and what they call load testing to simulate thousands of people rushing in at one time to register. And when we launched the registration on October 13th of this year, it was slow in the beginning. In the first week it was slow, and then it began to pick up. And at the very end we saw a rush, but we were able to handle it. The staff was able to process the applications. There are a few left to be finalized. But we are very, very pleased with the fact that so many businesses came forward to comply, and the fact that we have been able to handle it without major incident.
How many people have registered, or businesses have registered so far?
So far, yeah, today is, as of yesterday, today is the 19th. As of yesterday, there were 5,085. And so we expect that by January, we should have anywhere between 5,500, possibly 6,000, because we expect that there will be more businesses. There are a few businesses that should mandatorily register, i.e. those businesses over 100,000 who are yet to come in, a few of them. And we are seeing a lot of businesses under the threshold, under 100,000, who are coming forward voluntarily to register. And those people, they can register at any time without penalty. And
that is advisable to register?
It is advisable. Yes, okay. It is advisable, because then those businesses that are suppliers to larger businesses, they will be able to charge VAT to their people that they supply to, and then those people that they supply to will be able to claim the VAT credit.
Is there any extension at all given in this registration exercise?
We are, because of we want everybody who should register if they have not already done so. You know, it's a big undertaking. It's been very successful so far in terms of the registration, but we are not advising, we are not taking a heavy-handed approach, for example, to someone who might be late. Because, as I said, there are some issues the businesses had in terms of business license compliance, perhaps national insurance compliance, that they had to work out. And so we encourage people to come forward. The vast majority have already done so, but it's not our position to use a heavy hand for someone who might be a few days late.
When you think the heavy hand will be used?
I think, you know, I think what happens is, you know, there's a difference between someone who is trying to get their house in order, so to speak, and then someone who just refuses to comply. And I think you have to take an approach where, you know, you're able, again, as I said, this is a massive undertaking, a tremendous shift. And so for those who might have been a bit slower, might have had to get their house in order, that's a different scenario than someone who flat out refuses to comply. And I think the VAT unit and the acting controller will take that into consideration.
The government has been running a huge deficit annually for many years now.
Many years.
And you're running around $400 million a year in your deficit. You do not expect VAT to cover all your deficit?
No.
50%?
What we expect is about, if we just look at the pure number, about 50 to 60%.
Okay.
But as I started to say earlier, when we take the holistic view of our economic situation, and I've said previously, we cannot expect to say to the Bahamian people, pay this tax, without us as government at this time also saying we're going to do a better job of collecting the taxes that are on the books. We're going to do a better job of controlling our expenditure, eliminating waste where we find it, and trying to modernize, etc. And we also have to do a good job of trying to grow the economy. And the fourth element of it is tax reform, i.e. bringing in the VAT, where we can broaden the tax base. And so what we have done, and it's interesting, because we speak about those four elements all the time, but the one that gets the most attention from the public, I think, is the VAT, because it involves a new system. Doing a better job of collecting what is due. We hear people talk about it all the time. They say there's so much money outstanding in real property tax. We need to do a better job at customs. We need to do a better job at business license enforcement. And this is what we're doing. We are modernizing the customs department. The government of the Bahamas secured a loan of $16.5 million from the IDB to bring in a new IT system for customs. We want all customs entries eventually to be online. That will save time. It will allow us to redeploy officers who were perhaps in the office processing entries to be out doing enforcement, particularly what we call post-entry audits, i.e. going into places and doing audits after the fact. We are in the process now, and this is a very exciting development, of acquiring 3 boats. And we will eventually grow those to 6, and then eventually we hope to expand. For the Customs Department, they're working in conjunction with the Royal Bahamas Defense Force to establish a customs marine unit. We constantly hear people saying we have to do a better job of enforcing what comes into these private marinas, not only in terms of revenue, but we have a huge problem in terms of gun smuggling and other contraband.
Yes.
And so we expect that to go a long way in terms of enforcement. So we're modernizing customs. That's going well. We're also modernizing the real property tax department. We had a tremendous issue with backlog, arrears, but a big issue we had as well was the cleanliness, for want of a better word, of the data that's in the system. The tax roll is incomplete. A lot of the information we're finding that is in the system is incorrect, and so we're cleaning that up. We're buying a new IT system. We've hired some private collectors to assist us in the collection because we just don't have the manpower. And so we're making strides in real property tax. We recently approved a contract to modernize and computerize the road traffic department. So we get rid of a lot of the manual processing, make it electronic.
Very good.
Eliminate some of the leakage. Okay, and so those 3. We're also, in conjunction with the implementation of VAT, it gives us an opportunity to look at business license compliance. I have recently, we've had some discussion, and we're about to launch a review of all of our revenue lines, where we're going to examine each one, wherever the government collects revenue, and look at how we can improve in each one of those. And that goes from whether it's private fishing charters, whether it's hotel licensing, whatever it is, looking at all of them to see how we can better administer, because that is what we hear from the Bahamian people, and which is also our understanding, that you cannot expect people to pay a new tax if there are others on the books. Now, when we examine them, we might find that they are cumbersome and maybe they should be adjusted, but what we want to do is just make sure we're doing the best possible job we can in collection and in eliminating leakage.
But that's a legitimate complaint from the public.
Of course,
yes.
Of course, and waste, and waste. And we, in 2013, we asked all government agencies to see if they can cut their budget by 10%. We asked them to examine the budget, look for ways to see if they can cut it by 10%, and we've had some success. Part of our challenge in the Bahamas is that as an island nation, demands are constantly increasing on the government. And so when we look at, for example, the mini hospital in Exuma and in Abaco, They've been built, they're complete. Now they have to be staffed, and there are operational expenses that have to be provided for. When we look at our airports around the Family Islands, they have to be upgraded to maintain FAA standards, requires funds. And so annually, as fast as you think you can find some way to save some money, increasing demands on the public purse. And so what we have to do is, in terms of the development, we're looking at public-private sector partnerships, so the government doesn't have to come out of pocket immediately for all the capital development. And we're examining areas where user fees can be put in place in order to defray some of the costs. So it's a constant challenge. And members of the public, they constantly walk up to you and say, I know, one of the big ones is government cars after hours and other areas of waste. Again, we're looking at it. It's constantly a challenge to find, but I just wanted to mention those to assure the public who might be viewing the program that it's not simply a new tax. And leaving everything as it is. We're making good strides in improving administration and as well restraining government expenditure.
Okay, let's take a break here on the program. The Minister of State for Finance, Michael Halkitis, is here today. We'll come right back.